Welcome everybody to this great webinar we have planned for you today. Thanks for giving up your lunch hour to join Watersheds Canada. There are some familiar names, at least in the audience, so to speak, today that I've not had the pleasure to meet yet. I want to recognize Glenn Tunnick and Terry Reese, I believe, is on the call. A couple names there I just mentioned that that Darlene will cover as well. They're important players in this presentation because they provided the background and the steering committee direction for a program that you're going to hear about today called Planning for Our Shorelands. I'm Robert Pye. I'm the new executive director, and I'm really excited to have come into this organization because of the passion for watersheds across the country. And I know that there's some new faces or new participants to this webinar. Perhaps have never heard of Watersheds Canada before. Perhaps this is your first time joining us. Just as a high-level overview, Watersheds Canada is a national charity focused on the health and protection of our wetland, or sorry, of our watersheds, our lakes, and our rivers. And we have some great programs, and what I'm really excited about is our great volunteers and our great staff. We are a small team, and we are young at heart, and I am proud to introduce one of our stars, Darlene Coyle. Darlene is a passionate sustainability professional. She holds a master's degree in sustainability management from the University of Waterloo, specializing in environmental policy and equitable decision making. She actively volunteers with the Canadian Youth Biodiversity Network and is currently the environmental policy and planning program lead at Watersheds Canada. Here, she actively supports the local decision makers and waterfront residents in their efforts to achieve sustainable waterfront development to protect our lakes and rivers. I turn it over to you, Darlene. Thanks very much.
Thank you for the introduction, Robert. Thank you for everyone for being here today. Before I jump into today's presentation, I wanted to take a moment to hear from you, the audience. So feel free to take a second to answer this question in the chat. What waterfront issues are on your mind this election season? It can be environmental related, development related, economic related, whatever it may be. What are you concerned about? So feel free to put your thoughts in the chat, bounce off each other's ideas. Feel free to engage in a discussion throughout the presentation. And while that is happening, so while everyone's putting their thoughts in the chat, I want to tell everyone a little story. A story about a municipality called Watersville. And some of you may already be familiar with this story, but I wanted to tell it anyways. Watersville was a quiet rural town with some permanent residents, but mostly modest cottages for seasonal use. People would come during the holidays and long weekends to enjoy being surrounded by nature, enjoy freshwater lakes that were surrounded by dense vegetation, giving the feeling that they were completely secluded. However, the town has been undergoing a transition for a few years now. A lot of residents have started to notice an influx of full-time residents following the pandemic and work from home mandates. Property owners who used to live there part-time are now staying year-round. And new residents were moving in from urban areas to escape the busy city life for the quiet, natural, peaceful setting that is Watersville. The modest cottages that gave the town its charm are now being converted into large, luxurious, fully serviced homes, trying to recreate the same comforts you'd get in urban areas. And in the process of building their dream homes, vegetation is being stripped away to the water's edge. The native plants that provided the beauty and protection that they came for are now being stripped away. The landscape is changing dramatically. And it's not to say that it was perfect before, but building practices like building as close to the water as possible, stripping the land of vegetation to make way for a mowed lawn, building large docks in shoreline structures, done on a wide scale, on every lot surrounding a lake has had serious economic, environmental, and social consequences. For example, algal blooms are becoming more frequent, making the enjoyment of the water more difficult. The lake is losing its natural aesthetic, as everyone surrounding a lake is pulling out trees so that they can enjoy the view of the water from their windows. With more waterfront residents means busier waterways. So the calm waters that were used for canoeing and kayaking are now filled with motorboats and jet skiers, causing wakes that threaten the safety and enjoyment of the paddlers. Severe erosion has led to concrete retaining walls being built, hardening shorelines even more, leading to a loss of habitat for animals such as otters, turtles, muskrats, and other critters, but also for aquatic species, which in turn affects recreational fishing and tourism. Before you know it, Watersville is a completely different place, on its way to becoming just like the urban areas the residents wanted to escape in the first place. The landowners, who are paying substantial property taxes, are watching their land being washed away, literally paying more and getting less. So the story of Watersville is a precautionary tale that is unfortunately becoming a reality on lakes across the province. So with this tale in mind, many Ontario municipalities are concerned about protecting their freshwater in the wake of this change, but little is being done to actually address it, especially since municipalities readily market their clean, beautiful, healthy lakes for tourism growth and development. There is a lot at stake to protect these natural areas, and yet there has not been adequate investments made to protect them. Waterfront property owners, who contribute a good portion of the municipality's revenue through property taxes, are not seeing a return on their investment. So in the case of Watersville, they're literally seeing the land that they are investing in being washed away because the municipality is not investing in the education and program support to protect it. So in collaboration with our program steering committee, we conducted a stakeholder survey last year of nearly 200 individuals from across Ontario, representing elected municipal officials, municipal planners, and representatives of lake and river associations. The Future of Our Shores report found that the top barriers to shoreline protection were competing interests, so this continued dichotomy of environment versus development, a lack of guidance from the province, and insufficient scientific knowledge among municipal decision makers. The report also highlights that it's not uncommon that shoreline protection is inadequately addressed in existing municipal policies, but that stakeholders actually support the development of policy solutions, assisting efforts to enhance and conserve natural shorelines, which are cited as being a significant factor affecting the enjoyment of their lake and riverfront property. If you have a moment, I would encourage you to look through this report, as it has some very insightful findings that talk about the problem that we're seeing with regards to sustainable waterfront development across the province. And this isn't to say that waterfront property owners are to blame. Living at the waterfront has inherent responsibilities that you just don't have living further upland. And quite honestly, no one teaches you or prepares you on how to be a sustainable waterfront property owner when you move in. So how do we expect people to know what a sustainable waterfront looks like? When you're constantly bombarded with messaging like this from various different industries, can you really blame someone for thinking that this is the desired aesthetic? We have been sold that these hardened, man-made landscapes are the desired look for so long. But taking a step back, especially considering the significant cost that comes with work like this, is this really the most beneficial thing long-term? Or is this something that you're going to have to spend even more money to upkeep, especially in the face of a changing climate? Looking at these landscapes holistically even, there's no space for wildlife because habitat has been destroyed. Concrete armor stone only does the job for so long. With continuous wave action and ice push, these walls will only deteriorate over time, needing to be repaired or replaced over the years, leading to continued erosion issues. With hardened surfaces to the water's edge, land-based pollutants are carried straight into the water, causing significant problems for water quality. Lastly, it deteriorates the natural aesthetic many waterfront property owners came to the lake in the first place for. This is very much like the case of Watersville. The natural aesthetic slowly deteriorates as all lots surrounding a lake try to recreate this luxurious image. Now the beautiful natural lake view that you carved out for yourself now looks across the water at properties just like this, very similar to the suburban areas that they tried to escape in the first place. And you no longer feel secluded on your lake, but actually quite exposed. It's a lack of understanding of the long-term consequences of pushing nature aside that we are failing to consider with landscapes like this. And quite honestly, it's consequences that we're already seeing. So as you can see from this video here, I hope that the bandwidth actually works to view this, but we have a mowed lawn to the water's edge. So when heavy rain falls, pollutants are carried by surface runoff straight into the water because there's no vegetation to slow it down and absorb it into the soils. When we look underwater, we see that it's quite murky. There are very few aquatic plants to hold down sediment and provide habitat and food for aquatic life. And someone moving into the area might not understand that this isn't natural, that this happens because of the development practices happening on land adjacent to the water. And it doesn't have to look like this. Our surveys have shown that people really value our fresh water, and that includes good water quality, natural shorelines, and aquatic life. However, when we actually go to their property, what we see is a huge disconnect between their values and their actions. And this is impacting the very thing that they love. Out of 40,000 shoreline assessments that we've completed, only 22% of properties meet the minimum criteria for sustaining lake health, which is maintaining at least 75% of the shoreline in a natural state. If you're interested in assessing your property, you can use the Lake Protection Workbook for a self-assessment, or you can contact the Love Your Lake program to potentially do a lake-wide shoreline assessment. Mostly what we're seeing is manicured lawns to the water's edge, very similar to the types of things you would see in suburban areas. Both scenarios have significant consequences for water quality and stormwater management, but at the waterfront, there is a direct connection between what you do on your property and the health of the lake. You see, when shorelines are left alone, when they're just given some space, ecosystems thrive. As you can see, the water is quite clear. There's an abundance of vegetation, which means aquatic life can thrive. And this is because the shoreline is left quite natural. So in a second, we're going to take a look above the water, and we're going to see fallen trees and logs left where they are to provide habitat and buffer the land from erosion impacts, thereby benefiting people and wildlife simultaneously. So the election is coming up on October 24th. And if you are unsure on how to vote, I would encourage you to check out your municipality's website for election details. You can also check out some of FOCA's materials for webinars, fact sheets, and toolkits to help prepare for the upcoming election. Electing municipal councilors that understand your concerns and are willing to step up and make a change is huge, because they have the power to set the direction of new policies and programs affecting development and environmental protection in your area. Municipal priorities should reflect what the taxpayers are saying. Therefore, we need councilors who will listen and are engaged with their concerns of the constituents. So if we bring the issue of freshwater protection to our candidates this election season, we are more likely to see it addressed when a new council is formed, because funding is allocated to issues that the community cares most about. So we want people talking about the width of the shoreline buffer as much, if not more, than the size of the change rooms at the local arena. Especially since the water is one of the top selling points for municipalities, we want to prioritize the big issues. Because we have known about the consequences of climate change for over 70 years. With tipping points set to be reached by 2050, and ambitious climate targets set for 2030, if we want a chance at achieving these targets, we need to act at the local level. We need to be thinking globally, but acting locally in order to see any real progress. And that is by implementing holistic and resilient solutions through municipal programs now, because we don't have much time to waste. Protecting and restoring our shorelands with native vegetation offers a natural climate solution in several ways. They moderate the surrounding environment, which can keep the land moist to reduce the risk of fires, but also has the ability to absorb moisture and dry the land more quickly from flooding, a lot quicker than hardened surfaces. It helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as plants capture and store carbon dioxide. It cools the surrounding area by providing shade in increasingly hot summers. And it manages flood risk by increasing infiltration in times of heavy rainfall. The reason why I have this Time magazine here is because, and you probably can't see it because my square is very small, but I always have this on my bookshelf behind me to remind me that this isn't new. And not to age myself, to make myself seem too young or too old, but this has been an issue that has been going on a lot longer than I've even been alive. And this is now an intergenerational issue, because many of us have grown up knowing that climate change is our inevitable future, and we did not choose this. And we are running out of time to do something about it. So it's important to use your voice and vote for long-term thinkers. For the next few weeks leading up to the election, you have the full attention of your candidates. So take advantage of it. Watersheds Canada has several resources available online that you can take to your candidates so you can talk to them about some of the things that you want to see. There's also links happening on October 22nd leading up to the election. This year's workshop is discussing challenges and solutions to lake and river health. And we invite councilors to this event every year, and very few ever show up. So we encourage you to invite them to show their commitments. So the reason why the planning for our shorelands came to be in the first place was because the Future of Our Shores report found that most municipalities are struggling to create and pass effective policies that protect the shore and adjacent fresh water. So we want to provide support by bridging this communication gap between decision makers and taxpayers, and help build the capacity of municipal decision makers to take meaningful action to protect and restore their shorelands after a new council is formed. The reason why we say shoreland and not shoreline is because we want to encompass more than just that line where the land and water meet. We want to emphasize the importance of reestablishing the wide ribbon or buffer of vegetation around a lake in order to start reversing some of the development impacts. And this is not to say that we are anti-development or anti-growth, because both of these are essential for economic development and improving services to residents. However, we cannot continue to conduct business as usual, and there needs to be a better understanding among decision makers on the scientific benefits of bringing nature back into community planning. Which is why we are creating resources like the Planting Plan template and Guide to Achieving Environmental Net Gains. But we're also making presentations to municipalities on the science of vegetative buffers and practical policy solutions. And we're happy to present to councils across the province, but we need your help to get their attention. So as promised, to help bridge that communication gap, we wanted to provide our top 5 questions we think property owners should ask their municipal candidates to get the conversation going and assess whether their candidates have freshwater health in mind. Number 1 is getting at what they plan on achieving within their 4-year term and how they plan on measuring that success. Number 2 is getting at how they will meaningfully engage the community and take the time to learn about shoreline restoration. Number 3 is getting at whether scientific, factual, evidence-based decision-making is an interest to them, or if they're driven by emotion or private interests. Number 4 is getting at how they plan on using municipal spending to address these priorities. And number 5 is getting at how they plan to utilize partnerships with organizations like Watersheds Canada to be more effective at protecting and restoring waterfront areas. Protecting our lakes and rivers by restoring vegetated shorelines should be a big discussion topic this election season. And it's up to you, the voters, to make it so. And this shouldn't be construed to sound like a ploy by the municipality to increase profits or take land away from property owners. It's about protecting our properties from literally being washed away. It's about maintaining that connection with nature that we all came for in the first place. It's about taking action to increase their resiliency in the face of climate change, so future generations are given the same opportunity that we've had, if not better, to enjoy the natural environment. Because if we don't do something now, what's stopping your community from becoming the next Watersville? Now I'm going to pass it back over to Robert, who is going to tie it all in a nice bow for everyone. If we can figure out that darn technical stuff.
I'm unmuted. I just can't turn on my video now. Well, thanks, Darlene. That was a great presentation and really defines the passion of Watersheds Canada for working with not just landowners, but also municipal governments. And I should recognize as well that our audience today consists of a number of municipal election candidates that are working hard in their community right now to earn voters' attention, to earn voters' trust. And I really want to thank so many municipal candidates that are joining either on their own initiative or at the request of lakeshore residents, and a lot of lake associations help promote this webinar today. I want to thank everybody for participating in this webinar. And Darlene, you did a great job. I really like I think everybody can appreciate the tale of Watersville. It represents the reality of the situation that we see all too often in Ontario. And in my community, I should point out that we have communities that have lakes that are shared by multiple municipalities. In my area, for example, we have one lake that has the shore is connected by 2 or 3 different municipalities. So it's really important to be politically active, to be involved. And Darlene, your point about the size of the change room is quite right. That when we attend election candidate meetings over the next couple of weeks, we'll hear lots of local concerns about arena developments and all kinds of things happening in the municipality. It is our job to make sure that environmental issues, waterways issues are addressed and brought forward. So I really want to thank everybody for taking quite seriously the 5 questions that are presented as sound advice from Watersheds Canada to take forward to municipal candidates.